My name is Ellen Barney Sycks. I am the Stewardship and Communications Officer at the Waccamaw Community Foundation. I want to get this out of the way first. Please like, click, share, whatever you'd like to do. Most of our information that's going out to our nonprofits is going out through our social media channels as well as by. For those of you who don't know what the Waccamaw Community Foundation is, the Waccamaw Community Foundation is a community source. We are the only community foundation in Horry and Georgetown County. And what that means is, I kind of break it down this way. There are a lot of philanthropic people in this community, and they decided to pool their money to get together in a trust to give out to all of you for all the good works that you do. So we're here to support you financially. We're here to support you with technical assistance. And we also have people that hold funds, philanthropic funds themselves, at our organization. So we have different ways that we get money out to all of you, and we'll go through that. But our mission is to build sustainable philanthropy to strengthen our communities. And that's through all of you. We're here to support you. We do raise money, but we raise it so that we can bring it back to all of you. I don't see us as competitors. It's a different way for people to give money and give that to you. So I'll just go down quickly through what we do at the foundation and how you all can seek support from us. The Waccamaw Community Foundation itself, in our trust, what we call the big trust that we have, is over $30 million. And it's invested in long-term funds in association with the Coastal Community Foundation, which is headquartered in Charleston, and the Bunnell Foundation, which is headquartered in Georgetown County. We all pool our endowment funds, and they're invested in long-term investments. We did get a lot of phone calls in the past couple weeks about where all of our money is invested, since I'm sure all of you have seen the news about the Silicon Valley and some of the other smaller banks. Out of $500 million in assets, we only had $200,000 invested in Silicon Valley, and it was FDIC insured. So our assets are strong, the region is strong, and honestly, this region is so philanthropic. People have such a good heart, and that's what I'm saying to you, like you don't know it, but I've been at the foundation for just about 1 year. It'll be 1 year next week. I'm originally from Ohio, but I started here at the foundation. Previously, for 30 years, I was a nonprofit fundraiser like all of you. So I literally have been where you are. I worked for big national organizations like Boys and Girls Club. I worked statewide and nationally for the National Kidney Foundation. I worked for Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout. And yes, when my coworker got sick, I had to run the cookie sale. So nothing gets more brutal than running the cookie sale, let me tell you. In fundraising, that's as really as deep as it gets. But having said that, I really do understand the ins and outs of all the great things that can happen from raising funds in the nonprofit world. So here are a couple of things I'll go through briefly about what we do. Most of you know us from our competitive grant cycle. That is where typically twice a year, nonprofits have sought money from us through an online granting portal. You go in, you ask for money for your projects, and it can be anything. That's the brilliance of having our trust. There are no restrictions on what you can ask for. We don't do specific programs. We react to what you all send to us. And a lot of times you'll have foundations or funders that only do education or they only do healthcare or what have you. But on our competitive grant cycle, it can be anything. We're really trying to respond to what the good is that you all are doing. And we do have a committee of volunteers from the community who once there's an application that comes in, they all come in. This year, we're doing one grant cycle instead of the two. We've been trying to get the word out because people have been used to there being one in the spring and one in the fall. We're only doing one this year. We heard what people were telling us. People were telling us it was wearing them out doing two in the hopes of getting two, so now we're putting it all in one. After we receive all the grants, it opens May 1st, and it closes on June 30th. And it's all through our website, www.waccamawcf.org. I'll make sure all of you have my business card, so if you want to, you can look there. So waccamawcf.org. We go in and it's a pretty brief application for all of you. We've really slimmed it down over the years. If we need to know who your board members are, we'll either look online or call you. We know you guys have a lot of things to do. Raising funds takes about probably 70% of your time, and then you have 30% doing what you really love in your programs. So we know that we're trying to slim things down. And even in our scholarship program, we actually have a scholarship program as well. I'll just go back to competitive grants for a minute. Last year, we gave away $2.2 million in grants to the community. And what we do is the trust is invested, and we give out what they call the spendable. It's basically the interest off our investments. So every year, people ask me, well, how much do you give out? And we're like, well, we don't quite know until about March, the end of March. We're kind of going to find out what it is because with the markets and everything else, we don't quite know every year. And then what happens is our organization, our grants committee, which does both the grants programs and the scholarships on both of them, they look and see how much money they have to give away, and then it's kind of like a chess game. Typically, I think they try to fund as many organizations as they can with the money that they have. Last fall, we did do a mini grant program, which were really small grants. I would say less than $2,000 a piece. So we did do that because, and a lot of them went to smaller organizations that don't have a lot of staff. A lot of organizations don't have any staff, and it's volunteers doing that work, and we appreciate that. So the grants committee, all volunteer, all community people. Staff is not included in it. I am not included in it at all. I do stewardship and communications. The other side of this, and the person that will be handling the competitive grants as well as scholarships, is our program manager. And we actually have hired somebody new into the position, and there'll be an announcement next week. And really, as you're working through your grants, that'll be the person that you will contact if you have any questions or you're new. Especially if you've never applied before, we really encourage you to call and talk to the program manager to make sure that you get all your information ready and that the application process is I won't say it's not as painful, but hopefully it'll be a smooth process for you. So what happens? You apply online. After June 30th, all the information is brought down to the committee. They look at it and they score it. They all score separately. So they're all not getting together and picking their favorites. So they go through and score separately, and then they do come together and decide how much to give to whom. So I can't wait to sit in on that because I didn't get to last year. So there are varying interests, and that's what's so great about this community. There's so many different categories that we like to see and like to see more of, more funding, more people coming through. That'll be great. But our scholarship program just ended. we open up scholarships for high school seniors. And we're actually adding 2 more scholarships next year, which each of the people that have funds that do scholarships, they basically decide what the parameters are, which is really fun. Because we have some that it's pretty much just apply and we'll see what happens, to some people that there's one, what we call the big one, the Jones Scholarship, which is pretty large 5-figure scholarships. And they're pretty significant, but it's only for students that have been accepted in an engineering school at University of South Carolina. So they all each have different criteria based on what the donor wanted. And then it is our obligation to fulfill that. Sometimes we do have scholarship funds where we don't grant. We don't grant money out for scholarship because we don't have anybody that A, applies, or B, qualifies. So what happens then is the money is put back into the investments and just creates more money for the next year. So we do those scholarships. That is over. I always tell people, get your kids ready. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but it all helps. I can't believe, I'll just say I'm old, but it's amazing how expensive college or technical schools. There are some that are focused on technical schools, or at Georgetown County being one of them. Fund holder grants. Those are those fund holders that have their own philanthropic funds with us. We have about 130 individual funds. They give out money to organizations they support. And I'm sure there are people in this room that have received money from individual fund holders. We process, basically, they recommend grants to us. And we make sure that it's a quality organization, that it is in good standing with the IRS. Some folks can get into trouble with the IRS by not submitting their information. So sometimes we have to wait until people clean it up, but it's never too messy. But it's really our job for them is to make sure we're vetting people and making sure that it's a qualified 501c3 organization. And then the check goes out. So that is a big part of what we do. A lot of generous people. And one of the things that we have a nonprofit directory for those of you who have not seen it. It is on our website. And what we're doing is starting to bring that into our communication line with our fund holders. Because we also vet when we put people on the nonprofit directory. I'm pushing information from organizations from the nonprofit directory directly in front of our fund holders. So a lot of times we have fund holders that just like to hear about things. Oh, I think that's cool. Doing with our fund holders to get more information in front of them this year, and I think I've talked to Caroline about this, is, and I know this since from my experiences working with nonprofits, is you have a budget every year. But like Murphy's Law, something always happens. There's always something. Hot water heater breaks, your computer server goes on the spits, somebody needs something. It could just be anything and everything. We were talking to somebody and they needed a new roof. So what we're going to start doing, it'll probably be in the 3rd or 4th quarter, is we're going to start doing a thing called immediate needs, where if you have an immediate need, something that's not budgeted on your annual budget, that you can send to us. And what we're going to start doing between our fund holders, donors, we do have donors who are not fund holders, they just give money to the trust, and the general public. And it's kind of being like crowdsourcing, but in a great way, and working with the media to get the information out to the public. And we're going to have it run through our website to go directly to the organizations. Most of our organizations that we do grants with and scholarships with and other things, it's all electronic transfer, so we can send it right into your accounts. So I want all of you to look for that. I think that's going to be significant because we're going to see our fund holders react. Point here is we actually hold money from the Knight Foundation. They owned a media conglomerate here that left the community. And when it left the community, they left a fund to help support the nonprofits in the community. There's a big national night foundation, but this is the fund that they left for Myrtle Beach. I think its corpus was around $4 or $5 million. So every year we have spendable from that for large projects that impact the community. And it's only for Horry County. We do cover Horry and Georgetown with most of our granting, but this grant is only Horry County. It's by invitation only. I don't even get a say. My boss, Mike Mancuso, whose birthday is today, if you look at our Facebook, he's the one that handles the Knight Foundation and works with the National Knight Foundation to get their approval for large, significant projects. And you'll probably be hearing something from us in June about this year. Those are typically 5 to 6 figure gifts that go from the Knight Foundation. So if you have any questions, give us a call. We can kind of tell you the parameter of what that is because it changes every year. And I think we're going to be seeing a shift with the National Knight Foundation as well. In the past, they've typically looked at economic development programs. I think we're seeing a shift to more human needs because they're clearly with the economy and just the way the world is right now after COVID, people are struggling and they want to clearly get the money out to people that need it. Quick, we do help nonprofit organizations beyond the money, which we know is really important. But things like this, professional education programs, trying to help all of you understand what funders are saying, what we're looking at, what are the trends, how you can better tell your story, is really, honestly, the most important thing to our volunteers, is they understand what your program is and why the money would be impactful to the people that you serve. That's really one of the big things that we do. And capacity building. One of the things we'll be talking about here in a few minutes is how do we help you develop plans that are going to stabilize and create money and support forever. And it's beyond some of the things we're going to talk about here. It can seem kind of scary, but once you kind of look at the whole scope of the fundraising platform that all of you should probably be working towards, if you're not at this point, we'll talk about it. So how many of you have a fundraising plan? A written fundraising plan? Written down? Okay. You think you do? Yeah. Well, and depending on the size of your organization, some of y'all haven't really put pen to paper. And I always think that it's best, to, even though I get writer's block, and I'm one of these people that kind of procrastinate. It's a terrible thing, procrastination. But to put a plan together. And really what I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about what a good, diverse fundraising plan looks like. So annual donations. Who has people that sends them $25 every year, without asking? Y'all get those? Yeah. Don't forget about those people because they can help you later on, and I'll tell you a story that kind of happened to us. Who asks for money from businesses or corporations? Big or small? Both? Foundations. Who has written grants in here before? Okay. Who receives in-kind products? That can be anything from products to food. I know I've talked to, most of you probably know Sean down at the community kitchen. I think he has more in-kind product than he actually has room for. Major gifts. Now, these are bigger gifts than your annual gifts, and really it depends on the size of your organization as to what a major gift is. I've worked for organizations where a major gift is $500. I actually worked for the Columbus Museum of Art in Columbus, and their major gifts started at $50,000. So it really depends on how big your organization is and what you're doing. So don't feel like major gifts is like a scary thing. As you progress in your fundraising plan, your major gift's probably going to get bigger. Who has received something from somebody's will? Anybody received any money, property, stocks, bonds, insurance, legacy planning, and then endowments? How many of you have an endowment fund? Waccamaw Community Foundation has organizational endowments that support nonprofits. And I always like endowment funds, not only because it starts like an E, like Ellen, but it's called forever money. You invest that money, and each year you can spend your interest off of that for your operating programs. So this is forever money. Colleges, they can be held at banks. A lot of people hold them at the Waccamaw Community Foundation. They're community foundations. There are 1,000 community foundations around the country. Like, for example, the biggest one, and I was kind of surprised at this. I would think New York, LA. No, it's Kansas City. Kansas City has the largest community foundation in the country, and their assets are billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's amazing. It's kind of surprising, but these are long-term investments. But a really good fundraising plan has all of these elements. So what you all need to think about is where you are with each of these points. And believe me, I've been in an organization where at the end of the month, we're looking at cash flow. So we're at annual corporate events and maybe foundations. In-kind products are always great. All of the things that you need to consider and talk with your volunteers and your boards about when you're looking at a really good, diverse fundraising plan. And the reason I'm saying diverse is because anything like stocks, bonds, any investment, the more diverse you are, the less vulnerable you are when times get bad or bad things happen. So these are, and I'm sure you all have been on websites and read books about fundraising plans. This is really the heart of it. And one of the things that we do help people, and I'm actually working with CAP right now, is putting together a fundraising plan for them and helping them, based on where they are, say, this is where I think you should be right now and what you can in the next 5, 10, 20 years, where you can be. Some people are natural fundraisers. How many of you are natural fundraisers? You can ask anybody for anything. A couple people? That has a lot to do with it. It took me a long time in my fundraising career not to internalize asking people for money. A lot of people see it as begging for money, which I really hate that term. Because really what you're doing is asking people to invest in what you're doing. Whether it's $5 or $5 million, you're asking them to invest in what you do. And I've done enough training of volunteers, staff, and the board to understand there's some people that you can train into it and they end up loving it. It opens you a door, stick your foot in the door and don't let it out. Don't ever let a door shut on you. There's always a way, especially if somebody's making an introduction. So there are people that are natural fundraisers. There's some people that can learn how to fundraise, but I think it has to do with not internalizing it. Remember, it's for your organization. It's not for you. You're asking for your organization. Don't be embarrassed either. I've run people that they're embarrassed. And I'm like, after 30 years, I could just ask anybody for just about anything. Especially, there are times where you can get desperate. I mean, I've been in a lot of situations where there was a lot riding on some things. And you got to man up, as my brother would say. You got to man up. Go in there and ask for money. So these are the great basics of fundraising. Right now, impacting this region. And you need to know about these things while you're thinking about what your fundraising program can be, is, can be, should be. Right now in this country is the largest transfer of wealth ever. Ever. And it's the largest it's ever going to be. You have money from the World War II generation and baby boomers. The biggest concentration of wealth ever in this country. Like my parents are going to be people that are going to be doing a new will and may leave you money. They may be doing estate plans based on all the financial advisors that are twirling around over the past 3 weeks, losing their minds because of this banking crisis. They can come to the United States. Fact. Just flat out fact. And with people, unfortunately, comes money. And I'll go to number 5, philanthropic money follows. I was talking to my boss about economy. I could let the ladies from the chamber talk about that. Traditionally, with resort towns, people that rely on, what do they call it, hospitality, the hospitality industry. It seems as if just watching the news, and we kind of have been involved in some of it, there's a lot of technology that's considering moving here. And a lot of with technology comes money. Like Google's putting bringing a underwater sea cable from Argentina, correct?
It's already here, actually.
Yeah, is it? Okay, I didn't know whether it was here. I was talking with Martina here about Wadey's Island. Some of you may have heard that with a gift from Google and some of the donors from Waccamaw Community Foundation, we were able to help a conservation nonprofit retire the debt on that property and put it into the governor's conservation thing, so it will be forever saved. And Google comes in and immediately puts $500,000 into this region. So I'll let you all think about that for a minute. I mean, as economies diversify, there are opportunities to gain supporters, which you want, gain volunteers, look to see what veterans are coming into the region and who might offer you support. And also, unfortunately, like myself, we were talking about this earlier about midlife brain fog, aging population. It's just the fact that with the baby boomers and World War II folks giving money to their children, I'm Gen X, so we're receiving a lot of money at this point. And so is some of generation, what is it after that? Millennials. So there's an aging population going on, which means, once again, transfer of wealth. So things to think about how it might impact your organization with volunteers. You have an aging population, people are retired, more volunteers. You have people that might want to sit on your board, might want to help in any way. Some people just like one-off volunteer opportunities. Some people like to do something every Tuesday. Things to think about when you're talking about funding. What I wanted to talk about, most of you have the real good base of your fundraising. But legacy giving, that giving for the aging population here, and this is where we may go more in depth with some of these things, but I think this probably could be something that we can bring professionals in and even talk about these things. Donations upon somebody's death and wills. God love them. People are usually pretty generous, especially if they love something. I can tell this story because it's a public story. But we had a woman contact us who was getting ready to retire. Her husband was selling his business, and they wanted to create an endowment for an organization called All for Pause. So they were doing their estate planning, doing their will. I'm not sure if there was a trust in there, but whatever. So they went to Belize on vacation, discussing a lot of this, because sometimes it does with people with a lot of, investments in stocks. There's a lot of things to talk through, especially with your professional advisors. The woman of the couple went snorkeling, had an accident, and passed away, which was really devastating because she was 58 years old. So when her husband came back, clearly was devastated, but he wanted to make sure that what she wanted funded was going to happen and happen quick. So we helped them through that process, and now All for Paws has an endowment with the foundation with some base money. But since she passed away, he's having to redo his entire estate because it was based on their couple. So they're going to be funding All for Paws annually, and they're going to be putting money in their endowment. So they have money now, and they have money in the future. Because he wanted to make sure that his wife was remembered, and the fund is named after her. And things can happen. Things just happen, and it doesn't have to be millions of dollars, but it can happen. Trusts are assets that are put aside for the future, like my mom and dad's house. Life insurance, this is a good one. When people can buy life insurance and make you the beneficiary. As long as they're paying the premium, when they pass, the money would come to the beneficiary, which can be nonprofit organizations. We see a lot of people doing that for whatever financial reason. A lot of it, some of these things are because of taxes. I know my parents, once again, didn't want to give it to the man. So they were insured, I don't know, they were so insured happy. I don't know what their deal was with that. But insurance pays out immediately. That's what's so great about insurance. It pays out immediately, so you don't have to wait for assets to be sold or transferred or anything like that. It's typically, I would say, within 30 days in your organization. It's something to think about. Gift annuities, this is a contract, and I've only seen one of these in my life, so I'm just putting this on here so you guys can see it. It's where there's a contract between the donor and the charity that is forever money, but you provide a monthly or yearly income to the donor for the rest of their life. So there are a lot of tax implications when it comes to gift annuities, and I think we have only one here. I've only done one in my life, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew about it. And then endowments. Endowments can be for organizations. We have an endowment that is just for education. We have 2 of them. And we work those into our competitive grant cycle. When you all apply, we have the 2 education funds that work with our trust, and we kind of play a little chess with it. If we see something as education, we can fund it out of that rather than the trust so that we can fund more people. So it can be for a specific organization like the church that had 3 endowments, or it can be what they called field of interest, which would be like education, veterans, animals, what have you. Some people just put it in there and say, we are leaving it at the discretion of the grants committee. So it's really almost an unrestricted endowment, which is really kind of cool. An endowment is, like I said, forever money. And that's the best part. And it took me a long time being a fundraiser to understand, and now that I'm kind of on the other side, to see the wisdom in this. Typically for us, the Waccamaw Community Foundation, we require a minimum of $25,000 to start an endowment. And then every year an organization gets to spend, we promise, for at least 4%, which is great when you've got some investments that are giving you 1.9 on a CD or what have you. But it's forever income for an organization, which can be a lifeblood. And I think that's what Mrs. Bell wanted for All for Paws. She wanted to make sure that they had some consistent, unrestricted money that could pay for salaries, pay for the building, pay for a specific program, do whatever the organization needs, but that it gives some relief to the organization because they know that money is going to be there every year. And like I said, it's just like investments. It brings stability to you. Easy things that you can kind of do about the transfer of money in this era. is just provide legacy endowment information in your communications plan. One of the things I loved when I worked for National Kidney Foundation, I was the director of development for the state of Ohio and part of Kentucky, is on our envelopes, on the back, you know where you licked it, we put, please remember the National Kidney Foundation in your estate plans. It doesn't have to be difficult. It can be that easy. So start adding some of those types of messages to your communications. It doesn't have to be often. I mean, you don't want to, you know, that's why I was always kind of, you know, my boss is like, don't be a ghoul, you know, because some people don't like death. But those are easy things to do. And discuss it with your board. You know, if you're looking at what you're going to be doing 5, 10 years down the road, an endowment is something that really should be in your conversation. This is probably one of the top 2 things on this thing. Steward your top 10 donors. Just 10. That's all I'm saying, 10. And every large and small organization, your top 10 donors are probably going to be the people that are going to be giving you your most money during the year, and they're the ones that are probably going to be thinking of you when they pass away. Top 10. You may have top 20, top 50, but make sure you look for your top 10. But also appreciate all your donors. Every year, Giving USA does a survey about donor retention, and it's abysmal. Organizations don't do enough to show appreciation to all their donors on a regular basis. And we're always looking for new donors, right? Well, it costs $1.50 to acquire a donor.
Thank you, no.
And when you could be keeping the donors you have, but may fall off because you really haven't been appreciating them and paying attention to them. So it's the bane of the fundraiser's existence. Appreciation plans can be anything like what we do with our fund holders. We send birthday cards. We get everybody's birthdays. A lot of times they won't tell us the year, but they'll tell us the month and the day. So we send out birthday cards. We send out get well. If we hear somebody is not feeling well or they have a member of the family, if there's a death in the family, sympathy cards. Or even one thing I loved when I was at Boys and Girls Club, and this, I had a board that was so scared of donors. I asked them to, each month, when we receive donations, to call 5 of them, each of them, call 5, or whatever it turned out to be, equitably. Call them and say thank you. And since most people don't answer the phones anymore, you're basically leaving a message. How many times do you get a message in your own personal life, somebody thanking you for something? Not a whole lot. So it stands out above what most organizations are not doing, just to thank you. And our board loved it. They really all got into it. And even when somebody answered the phone after a couple months, they would get to know those people and start a relationship. And they felt appreciated, and frankly, their donations went up. So showing a little bit of appreciation and acknowledgement. I reason, or one that's really significant. That's why I'm saying small, medium, large gifts is really relevant to your organization. Thank people publicly. Say how it's going to impact you. You know, how many more, like including you in their legacy giving. They'll call us and open what I call a placeholder. They'll open a placeholder, put a minimum amount of money in there, and they want to know that that's going to be there, so when they pass away, the money is automatically going to go to your endowment that they've restricted for your organization. And it's funny because we'll go down our list and we're like, you talk to your donors. You can put some money for your operating and some in your endowment at the same time. If somebody's giving you $1,000, everybody always needs money. But if you want to build your endowment for your forever money, You can put 500 here, 500 there. And little by little, we have an organization called Project Goal. That's why we're here. We're here to support you. So if you want to have a chat about your own individual circumstance or what's going on with your organization, just let us know. That's what we're here for. Thank you.